Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. The last video we had talked about how I bought my Ioniq 5 Limited at MSRP, but for this video I wanted to provide some more information and give some personal thoughts on how to find an Ioniq 5. I feel like the best way to find an Ioniq 5 is to understand where these cars are actually going in terms of allocation. Hyundai initially announced that the Ioniq 5 would only be available in zero-emissions vehicle states, as well as Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Texas. In checking their website, you'll notice that they've actually updated it and added a few additional states. And something else that we'll touch upon later is I'm seeing a couple cars in Indiana and Wisconsin, which are not part of that updated list. So going back to our trusty EV Finder, you'll notice that it's not an even distribution. Some states are getting way more allocations than others, specifically California on the West Coast and New Jersey, New York on the East Coast. So then states like Arizona, Utah, Oregon, Colorado, and Washington are seeing maybe one, maybe two limited trim cars coming in for the entire state for the month of March. And then over here on the East Coast, states like Pennsylvania, Virginia, Massachusetts, Illinois, we're seeing maybe two or three limited trim cars coming in for the entire state for the month of March. So, if you're looking for a limited trim Ioniq 5, hopefully you live in or close by to one of these states, and hopefully the dealer that's getting the limited trim is selling it at MSRP. Otherwise, you may have another chance in 2 to 3 weeks when a whole new set of allocations come in, and hopefully those get allocated to dealers selling at MSRP. But most likely those delivery dates would be sometime towards the end of April. And on top of that, the dealers might be selling a first come first serve without any type of deposit system, in which case it'll be really tough if you don't live close by, like what happened to me. I'm reading and hearing about guys planning to fly from California to Florida, California to New York, Florida to New York. These are the kinds of people that you're up against, people that are willing to travel cross-country to get one of these cars. So the truth is that it's going to be really tough to find a limited or an SEL at MSRP. And that's where we're seeing quite a lot of people pay these markups. And honestly, I can understand where they're coming from. If you have to fly across the country, if you have to take multiple days off from work, sometimes paying that markup actually is the cheaper option, and it makes more sense. Or if you're waiting it out and you're driving a gas car, with the way that gas is, I think in LA right now it's about $7 a gallon. Switching to an EV instead of waiting multiple months might actually make sense. You might actually save some money. So you have to do the math yourself. You have to see what makes sense for you, and if it makes sense, do it. Get that awesome car and enjoy it. So in the midst of all the craziness, looking for SELs and limiteds, I actually think there's a solution. And that solution, I think, is the Ioniq 5 SE. So I actually heard some good news the other day. Someone had commented on one of my videos that they actually got an SE in New York at Center Reach Hyundai for $1,500 under MSRP. And I've just been waiting for this to happen when I first started looking for an Ioniq 5. With all the attention going to the SEL and the Limited and all the crazy markups, I've seen a bunch of SEs just sitting on dealer lots, and it felt like only a matter of time before eventually we would see some price reductions. Now that might not be the case yet everywhere, but definitely along the East Coast in New York, it seems like these prices on these SEs are finally falling, and you may actually have a chance at it below MSRP. So with that said, let's actually revisit the SE and see what it has to offer. So I have the Hyundai trim comparison running here in the background, but you can go there anytime and you can check the comparisons yourself, and you'll see that Hyundai really did include a ton of things standard at the SE trim. So if we start at the exterior, you'll see the exteriors are almost identical to the SELs. Headlights are slightly different, and you also get separate fog lights, but you still get the same distinctive DRLs and tail lights. And in my opinion, the black cladding actually looks better to me in certain colors. But from there, you actually get so much that stays the same. You have the same all-wheel drive powertrain, you have the same regen system with the same regen paddles, you get the same screens and the same infotainment system, you get the same quiet cabin, you get the same big and airy feeling inside. You do get slightly different cabin materials inside. You do get 19-inch rims, but that actually increases your range. And at least for me, it would make me worry less about curbing the rims all the time. So if you add it all up, it's just a really fantastic car that you might be able to get for around $40,000, factoring the tax credits and the other state incentives, and possibly even less if you can get it for under MSRP. Knowing what I know now, and having experienced the buying side for Limited and being a Limited owner, if I were in the market right now, I would be scouring all the dealerships and trying to get an SE below MSRP. At the end of the day, it has so much to offer. And if I had given it a real chance from the beginning, I honestly may have gone that route instead of getting Limited. From the very beginning, I had convinced myself that I needed the extras on the Limited, and I won't lie, they're nice features. But just thinking through this, I think it's surprising myself that I probably would have been just as happy with an SE. You know, my typical workday means I'm street parking, I'm parallel parking multiple times every day, and what happens is I'm just constantly worried about curbing the rims or worried about the car in general. But if I had the 19-inch rims and a price tag closer to $40,000, honestly, that would have made more sense for me as a daily driver in the city. So there you have it. That's my recommendation. If you're still looking for an Ioniq 5 at MSRP and you haven't really had any luck with SELs or Limited, then I would say go and spend some time with the SE and give it a chance to impress you, because it has a ton of stuff standard, and I think it's a really, really great car at that price. Another thing to keep in mind is that maybe a year from now the SELs or Limiteds are more readily available, and if you want to, you could trade up then, take advantage of the $7,500 tax credit again, any other state incentives. Who knows what trade-in values are like then? Maybe they're still decent. But in the meantime, you'll get to enjoy the SC, which I think is a fantastic car. And if you can get it at MSRP or even below MSRP, that's just amazing. So maybe there's an SE out there waiting for you guys.